So, as you just heard, we're very bullish on Europe, Middle East, and North Africa. And I'll tell you a little bit more about CCC Startups, what we're doing, our events, why we're doing it, most importantly. So, we see ourselves as an organization that bridges all these up-and-coming regions to the world, and to Silicon Valley especially. So, our goal is to become EMEA's top ecosystem catalyst and invest in its highest potential startups and help them become world-class enterprises. Right? So let me walk you through that. So in Silicon Valley, the funding stack looks something like this. There's bootstrap, there's friends, family, and fools rounds. People have some savings, and they're able to use these things to get started. Next, of course, are accelerators. After that, angel and seed VCs. Then you have the very large VC funds that provide growth equity. And then, of course, you have the M&A and the IPO market. So a very mature, very complete ecosystem of funding and capital, right, in Silicon Valley. Now, if you look at Europe and regions close by, it looks a little bit different. So bootstrapping and friends and family rounds are a little bit harder to come by. Generally, especially in the Middle East, people have a lot less savings. There are plenty of accelerators, as we all know. There are over 200 in Europe alone. Of various qualities, as you probably all well know. And angels and seed VCs, there are very few, not enough yet. And part of our goal is to actually build this investor class in this region. There are some larger funds, but they're much more conservative. These are usually bank approach or private equity, etc. And then you have growth equity for larger fundings, and you're starting to see more of this throughout Europe. Of course, there's the M&A and the IPO market, but unfortunately for Europe and Middle East, that usually leaves to the US, right? We all know that well. So the fact of the matter is that today, it is easier to start a startup anywhere in the world than it was in Silicon Valley in 1999. And the reason for that is this, right? You've probably all seen this picture, the comparison of the Pope coming in 2005 versus 2013. We've had quite a technology revolution in between. And really what we have are the new tools of the trade. These are the cloud platforms that allow anybody to be in business from anywhere in the world very quickly, right? We have Amazon Web Services, who, by the way, quick plug, is a partner of ours. We have the iTunes store. We have Google Play for distribution. We have PayPal for payments in many countries. We have ways to advertise from anywhere in the world. So there's no excuse for entrepreneurs not to get started anywhere, right? And it's a lot cheaper and more efficient to work anywhere outside of Silicon Valley at the moment. So we know venture capital is also transforming because of this, right? And we're responding to this. So yesterday's seed are today's Series A and B. It takes a lot less money to start a company. And yesterday's IPOs, by yesterday I mean around 1999, 2000, for those of you who remember it, are today's acqui-hires. Companies are built to flip. And they have smaller exits, but many more exits. And it's a lot easier to get there, right? In Silicon Valley, certainly, and Turkey is a relatively mature market for the area especially, and it's starting to propagate throughout other markets as well. So if you look at the majority of exits, they're actually 10 to 80 million. They're not the billion-dollar unicorns we keep reading on TechCrunch, but they are actually 10 to 80 million. These are realistic goals. These are realistic goals for companies anywhere in the world. Even if you look at the fabled Y Combinator, their average exit is about 20 million, or the median exit is about 20 million. There are a few outliers, obviously, we all know the names, but the median exit is still around 20 million, right? So that makes it realistic for companies in any country to shoot for. So why here and why now? Why are we interested in this area? Why are we bullish on Europe, Middle East, and North Africa? Right? So all these things I said, the venture capital is transforming, and the old model is changing, right? We have new platforms that make it a lot easier, a lot cheaper to start a new company. It doesn't take $5 million to start a company anymore. Right? It's starting to creep up in Silicon Valley again because of the competition in certain sectors. But otherwise, you can be in business for pennies compared to what was before. And smaller funds now are performing better than the large funds. Right? Smaller, more focused funds. Right? They outperform, smaller funds under 250 million outperform the large funds 70% of the time. Right? So there's some great statistics that support our approach. And if you look at Europe specifically, right, and these numbers get even better as you start looking into less developed economies and ecosystems, it's 3 to 4 times cheaper to get into a company in Europe than it is in Silicon Valley. right? The exits might be 25% smaller, apples to apples, but it's much cheaper and the entry valuations are much cheaper for these companies, right? Even though deal flow is rising and bigger exits you hear about more and more out of Europe, and you'll soon hear more about them from Middle East and North Africa, right? So cash on cash exits for investors, it's just more attractive to look at these markets versus competing with all the top funds in the US. And the proof is that just last year, in 1 year, 35% rise in invested capital in Europe, in venture capital. So, as Mike mentioned, in 2013, there are two revolutions that started in Ukraine. One was, of course, the Maidan revolution of Ukraine going towards Europe. And by happenstance, our event fell on the second week of that revolution, right in the middle of Kiev. So we had this great dissonance of a large startup event bringing together 50 speakers from all over the world in the middle of a real revolution. And from that, we decided to form a new type of organization which does a number of different things, right? So besides just being an investment fund, a venture fund, we're doing several things to connect to Silicon Valley, connect these ecosystems, and also doing a lot of events to bring Silicon Valley to this region. And you'll experience that today. We have wonderful speakers that are here to deliver quick, to-the-point talks that will talk about very specific things that are only learned through experience. So, as Mike mentioned, we'll have 10 cities this year, probably more. And this is our third one. We're a little bit running out of gas, where every other day we're doing an event in a different city. And it's a lot of fun, and it's great to see the different ecosystems and different levels that they're at. And hear some of the same questions, some different questions, and be able to give back to these new up-and-coming communities. Our next one is Poland, Hungary, and Croatia, April 15th to the 20th. Take a look at our website if you want more details. We'd love to have you join us. Now, the three of us come from very different backgrounds, and we have a very interesting presence. So Max is in Sofia, Bulgaria. Mike is in Berlin, Germany. I'm half the time in Silicon Valley. The other half, I'm a professional airline passenger. And we have a point of presence in Kiev. So we plan to really bridge these two ecosystems together and not just move companies to Silicon Valley and move entrepreneurs to Silicon Valley because we're trying to prevent that brain drain. Instead, we want that knowledge that can only be attained in Silicon Valley to come back to these ecosystems and inform the companies that are looking to solve local problems. The companies that we'll be funding, we're taking a look at basically clear problem, balanced team, functional product, scalable internet-driven distribution models, and symmetric revenue models, I should say. So as a fund, that's what we're looking for, and we know that we need to create an ecosystem and help the ecosystem grow for angels to invest, make 100 small investments for these companies to graduate to the next level where they have a potential of going world class. I won't list all of these, but we're looking at typical, very hot sectors in venture capital now, and we're looking for very capital efficient things because doing things that are asymmetric business models like the next social network are very difficult out of communities like this because they need tens of millions or more in capital. Right? This is why B2B is so strong in these regions, or solutions that are for the region, right? That can solve very symmetric problems, get to revenue, get to profitability relatively fast. I'll skip this real quick, but to give you an idea, we have a very quick and efficient process that we'll be applying to invest in these companies, but the idea is to be very, very efficient in our process and involve some of the big funds from around the world that are our partners that we'll be announcing at some point in the future that are integrated into this process. Right? They're integrated into this process because the second check will come very quick, and that's when these will help these companies go global. We already work with a number of accelerators all over Europe. We've been working with Burak and his team for quite a while, and he's doing incredible things here in Turkey. Just amazing with such a small team, they're able to create such mass volume. But there are a number of great accelerators around Europe that are producing companies that have the potential of going global. And of course, there's such volume of talent and entrepreneurship going on around all over Europe and Middle East that these things, the billion-dollar startups are coming very soon, these unicorns that you heard about earlier today. And the way the economics work here, we have a chance to really play kind of blackjack, right? We can lower our risks while increasing our ownership in these companies. So this is why venture capital in this region is so interesting. Just the economics are so interesting right now with this particular point in time. So of course, as a venture fund, we have to look at what we're up to and our business. So this is why we're very interested in this region, because the economics and dynamics are so interesting. And it's such a chance to give back to society and provide such a value add to this area and help really entrepreneurship bridge the gap between the new generation, and a lot of these countries have very young populations that need to solve the job question, right? So jobs are not going to come from big companies, they're going to come from small businesses. So innovation, entrepreneurship is so important to the region, and we're hoping to help that. So please join us. If you have questions, we're obviously around. We'd love to talk to you more. We're currently raising the fund, and if you're in that category, we'd love to talk to you as well. So with that, I'll wrap it up and hand it off back to Mike. Thank you very much.
All right.